Welcome, welcome, welcome to Conversations with Cubit. I got to tell you, thanks for tuning in week after week. The support has been absolutely amazing. Now, I have to ask you to please stay engaged because we have a lineup of conversations that you need to make sure you're a part of. I got to give a special thanks and a special shout out to Green Pasture Studios and the Oklahoma Film Training Academy for hosting these weekly conversations, because the quality of the broadcast would be totally different if it wasn't for these fine folks. Now, do me a favor and share this conversation on your page. Do it right now. Hit the button, and feel free to comment and send us your questions as this conversation goes on. Tonight's conversation is going to be jam-packed with information, and I cannot wait to get started. So let's do it. As you know, I have 3 simple goals for each one of these conversations every week, and one is to add value to people in my community. 2, I want to inspire people to believe in what we can become together. And 3, just love people, period. All this means is I want you to be inspired. I want you to get useful information and resources, and I want to celebrate individuals, groups, and organizations who are making a positive impact on our community. Every conversation, I hope, will be about information, inspiration, and hope. And if you've been following along with these weekly conversations, you might recall a conversation I had with Representative Kevin McDougal back in April of this year. Representative McDougal, he co-authored House Bill 1674, which was signed into law during this last legislative session. And hats off to Representative McDougal for having that conversation with me live on Facebook, knowing full well that I had very serious concerns about the bill and was in opposition of it being signed into law. This House bill was the source of much controversy and community debate back then, and continues to be something of major concern for many right now. House Bill 1674 has been commonly referred to as the anti-protest bill. This is the one where protesters can get run over and there's no consequences for that. We'll talk more about that as we go on. But here today, I have a young man who is openly disagreeing with this new law and has plans to do something about it. Mr. Joshua Harris Teal joins me today. Joshua Harris Teal currently is the president of the Young Democrats of America. Joshua has dedicated his life, energy, and passion to helping people, which I love. He comes with a background full of community service, from middle school food pantries to candidate for U.S. Congress. For Joshua, people come first, and he has spent the greater portion of his life ensuring that he never meets a stranger twice. He has honed his skills of communication, networking, and is a grassroots activism guy. Joshua knows that it's not always about effort, but also efficiency, not wasting time or resources in a time where both are hard to come by. I met him during my campaign for the Oklahoma County Sheriff's race, and I am always impressed. I have always been impressed with his positivity, his very enthusiastic personality, and let me tell you, he is one of those leaders right now who is working on State Question 816, which has been drafted to overturn House Bill 1674. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to welcome him to the show. But before we welcome Joshua Harris Teal, take a look at this footage from a recent interview he did on K4.
And from the state capitol, a new effort to overturn a state law allowing drivers to run over protesters if the driver fears for their life. A group is now working to get a state question on the ballot to overturn that law. News 4's Angela Shen has details.
The petitioners are gathering signatures for the next 2 months, hoping to overturn the bill, which would take effect in November.
I believe there is not enough consensus on this subject for us to allow that decision to stand, and that's why it should go on the ballot.
Joshua Harris Teal with the No on 816 campaign, speaking about the effort to overturn House Bill 1674, which would give immunity to drivers who run over protesters if they're in fear of their life. To get on the ballot, petitioners have to get close to 60,000 signatures by August 26th. That's 90 days after the legislative session ended. The nearly 60,000 required signatures comes from 5% of the votes cast for the governor in the last election. Harris Teal says his motivation to do this comes after a time when he was trying to separate protesters from a car trying to get through an intersection.
That moment right there reminds me that when somebody does decide to run over somebody, it's not going to be the agitators or rioters or somebody who's breaking a window. It's going to be somebody like me who's in the front trying to keep the peace.
The bill's author, Representative Kevin West, says it's a misconception that drivers can just run over anyone.
If a case like this were to happen, whoever the district attorney is for that area would review all of the evidence and make a determination if it was justified or if it wasn't justified.
He also says it's the right of citizens to challenge laws.
I 100% support the way that everything is set up here in Oklahoma.
And thinks the results could go either way.
It is a pretty high bar to get a law overturned. We'll see if that will happen or not.
Angela Shen, Oklahoma's News 4.
And if the group gathers enough signatures to get it on the ballot, it would go up for a vote in November of next year.
Well, Joshua, thanks for being on Conversations with Cubit, man. I appreciate you being here.
I appreciate the invite. It's always been great conversations that we've had in person, never recorded, but I like that the atmosphere is still so conversational.
It's very conversational, and you've been pretty popular. We saw the news piece, so you're getting around town. Tell us a little bit about you. Where I found out today, I thought you were an Okie, down home, born and bred Okie, but tell me, you've come by a different method.
Yeah, no, I'm originally from Dallas, Texas. This is where me, my mom, and my brother lived for the beginning of my life. We moved around middle school to Rayville, Louisiana. I took care of my grandmother after my grandfather passed away. And then my mom wanted to go to Rhema Bible College. After my grandmother passed away, she was looking for kind of a new step, a next step in life. And so we moved to Rhema Bible College, went to Broken Arrow High School, went to Northeastern State University, been in Oklahoma since way back then, but just got to Oklahoma City about 3 years ago.
Well, that's good. So tell us a little bit. I know we're going to go into this campaign that I guess you would call it a campaign. It is a campaign.
Right.
On 8/16. But before that, you got to talk about the shirt. It says respect, defend, support, believe, protect Black women.
You know, I think just in society right now, we're seeing so many Black women get attacked for so many things. And as a Black man who was raised by a single mother, like women, and I have 7 aunts, you know what I mean? So I was raised by Black women my entire life. They've invested in me. They are the key to so many different pieces of success that I've had in my life. And it's a shirt that I made prior to everything happening with Sha'Carri Richardson recently, but I feel like today, hearing that she won't be able to go to the Olympics, it just makes it that much pertinent, makes it that much more important. We need to be doing stuff, doing a whole lot more, especially as Black men, to support Black women, because they aren't feeling supported in society. And we have seen them attacked from so many different angles. And if I can do anything, that's the one thing that I want to make sure I'm doing.
And that's one thing I noticed. Every time I see you got some message, positive or some support. It is activism on your chest. Every time I see you, it's a different one. You make them yourself.
No, my best friend, his girlfriend, actually, she makes them. She's a mom. She stays home, raises 2 kids, and she wanted to start a business. And so in order to support her business, I was like, hey, you're making shirts, let me buy the shirts. I probably have, 50 or 60 shirts I've gotten from her. She actually, this is one of the new ones she just made for me.
Yeah.
But local business, like a mom trying to feed her kids. If I can do anything to support her, I definitely want to make sure I'm doing it.
It's really big. But I feel like you have to do big things. And the reason why is because you have a hyphen in your name, Joshua Harris Teal. That's hyphenated. You got to do some big things, man. And plus Joshua, that's biblical.
Right. Well, one, that was why they named me Joshua. They was like, you got to do big things. And Harris is my mom's last name. My grandfather had 15 kids. And his name was Abraham. So a descendant of Abraham on that side. But then on the other side, Till, Emmett Till is my cousin. So Mamie Till, that entire legacy.
Is that right?
Of really, spurring a lot of action during the civil rights movement. Like I live that every single day, and so I'm compelled to be out here on the front lines.
And I understand you had some. Don't. I'm a police officer, so I still do a little bit of investigation. You had a little bit of time behind the pulpit recently, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, my friend Reverend Lori Walkie, they do a distinguished guest series, and so she let me speak at her church this past Sunday, and it was a beautiful opportunity, super humbling experience. She is so amazing that I worked really hard to try to make sure I had a good message, just preaching about love, and I think
We need to find that and post that, man. I need to. I want to follow that. But shout out to Lori Walkie. She is cool people, and her husband too. He's
both of them.
Yeah, he's a politician. But
Right.
Yeah, he's a good one.
He's a yoga instructor too, and meditation. So I've done some meditation classes.
He's working with
him.
our group. He's done some stuff with our group of teenagers. So really good. All right, enough fun stuff. Let's get to the brass tacks. Give us a big overview of State Question 816.
Yeah, so Oklahoma actually has a really interesting and a really amazing form of democracy in form of the veto referendum. It states that if you get enough signatures, 5% of whatever the last gubernatorial turnout was, then you can put a question on the ballot to let the people vote on. And it's something that not every state has, but something that I'm really excited for us to have here. When I saw the conversation about this beginning, I said, I'm going to do something about this. Like, I refuse to just let this law stand. And and then the state called my bluff and they passed it and then signed it actually extremely quickly. And so we responded, filing the paperwork with the state to create the veto referendum, which is now State Question 816. They've actually stalled us a lot. There was a petition signature form that was supposed to be ready back in November, and they hadn't completed it yet. They were telling us it might be 4 weeks before they had it completed. We told them that was unacceptable. And so they said they'll work on getting us sooner. To about a week or two, they gave us the form. And so we're like, okay, well, we're starting now. And then the Attorney General came in and said, no, you can't start because my interpretation of this section of law, it's like Section G, subsection 8, and it says that anytime within the 90-day circulation period, they can cancel their efforts, right? Or suspend their efforts. And he says that my interpretation means you only have 90 days. You can't have more. We disagree with that. And we thought about suing the state, but being good stewards of resources in terms of the grassroots fundraising that we've been doing with this, we decided not to waste the money there and just utilize the 90-day window. And I still like to say, like, we won and the Attorney General lost because we were here and he's not.
You're gonna go there, right? Right. Okay.
You know, just to tell you how I feel about him.
Okay.
But we had to kind of rebuild that momentum. We had over 1,000 people signed up to volunteer for this effort when we first released it, and so we've been putting people out there. Obviously, the Tulsa Race Massacre commemoration. And Juneteenth and now the 4th of July. We're going to as many big we're going to as many big events as possible, getting as many signatures as possible. And we are very confident that we're going to be able to hit the signature threshold. Depending on what they do with how many signatures they throw out, we know that's always a big issue. And so we're trying to prepare for that and explore our legal options.
So give me your big headache or your big problem with the House bill that you're wanting to overturn. Let's talk about what's the problem.
You know, the biggest issue that I have with it is that all it does in and of itself is attack protesters. In the first part, it says that you can't assemble in roadways if it unreasonably inconveniences. And I don't know what unreasonably inconvenience means, but I know that telling us where we can and can't peacefully assemble is a violation of the First Amendment, in my opinion, in my interpretation. The second part says that you can run over people as if you feel threatened, as long as you practice due care. I don't know what due care means in running over somebody. I guess, you know, maybe you don't back up over them after you hit them the first time. But
well, maybe due care means boop boop, they're honking the horn, I'm trying to leave, I'm trying to get out of the way, but they're still blocking the road. Would that seem like due care, or
if there is a group of people in front of you and there is road behind you, then you should turn around to try to slowly navigate through an area that's blocked off by protesters.
Due care would be attempt if I'm doing due care.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to U-turn, I'm trying to get out of here, I've not been able to go on my way because of this inconvenience, then you say that's due care. But you don't need a law for that.
You don't need a law for that. And when you take away the civil and the criminal liability on this, you're telling me that I want you to be able to hit people without getting in trouble for it. And whether or not that was the intent of this, that's what it does. Because we have to go by what's identified in the law. And people are going to read that. These extremists out there are going to read that. These people with hate in their heart are going to read that, and they're going to think, I can run over these people. And whether or not this law protects them, you can't unhit people with cars. You can't bring back somebody who dies. You can't unparalyze the young man who's paralyzed in Tulsa right now. Those things don't get undone, even if this law doesn't protect them.
Was this law created in response to an incident that happened in Tulsa? Because I know when I talked to McDougal, Representative McDougal, who co-authored the bill, he mentioned Tulsa in the conversation.
I think this was in response to Black Lives Matter, 100%, whether it be Tulsa or Oklahoma City. People saw something and they felt like, man, they're blocking roadways. And we heard this conversation. I run the Black Lives Matter page. We heard this conversation. We saw it in the comments. People were upset. Well, what if I need to get to work? Or what if I need to pick my kids up from daycare? Or what if somebody's trying to go to the hospital? Or they're blocking ambulances and fire trucks. And one, those things didn't happen. There's no video of that anywhere in Oklahoma. And two, what you will normally see at protests, and I've protested across this country, is when there's an emergency vehicle, the protesters will move out of the way and let that emergency vehicle through. If there's a person with an emergency, protesters will move folks out of the way and let that vehicle through. These aren't malicious people. These aren't, thugs or any criminals, anything you want to call them. These are people who are genuinely upset with the way things are going in this country. They still have hearts, they still have lives, they still have families, they still have jobs, but they have something that they're passionate about, and so they've taken to the streets to make their voices heard, which is something we've done historically in this country. And I always use the example, the Boston Tea Party didn't take the sidewalk to go to the port. And also they ended up destroying property, right? You think back to Selma, Bloody Sunday. It's inherent in our nation that when unjust laws are passed or when unjust things happen, we take to the streets to make our voices heard. We shouldn't have to. We would hope that our representatives and legislators would just know, would just be cognizant of it. But you saw during the teacher walkout, no matter how many teachers show up to the Capitol and make very clear demands on what they need in order to be successful, there are people who are going to listen. And there are people who are elected who are not going to listen. And I think that's one of the biggest issues.
I think it's interesting, and I think it's a pretty good opportunity here to kind of share with people from your perspective. Now, you said that you've been to many protests around the country. One, what makes Joshua leave the comfort of home and go to anywhere in the country to attend a protest? Are activists or protesters, are they just looking for a fight to fight, or does it has to be unjust or injustice to get them off the couch, or it might be something in between that?
I think it has to be injustice, and I think it has to be something so egregious. The protest last summer happened down the street from my house, literally walking distance, 4 blocks, and I was sitting in my house and I heard people were assembling in the intersection, and I went down there not to lead the protest, not to really even protest at all, but to try to make sure that there was some safety taken, there was some order, there were people who understood what protesting actually looks like, and make sure that they understood a protest means nothing if you don't have a plan and a message and something that you're asking for, something that you're demanding. And so a lot of times when you're out there, and there's a really powerful photo that someone took at the protest. There was a moment where two police officers did a very aggressive takedown of a homeless man, and the crowd rushed over towards the cops. And of course, the cops had kind of the riot squad there, and they were rushing towards the protesters. And myself, I jumped in front of them, and then I felt some people lock arms with me, and we just blocked the protesters from advancing forward. They were behind us, they were angry, but because I was there and because I had blocked them from moving forward, they stopped. And an officer came up and he was like, if you control your people, I'll control my people. And I said, fine. And so then he started to make them back up. Now the protesters started walking up when they saw the cops backing up. So there's a video of me turning around and yelling at them like, get back to the intersection. We are not here to fight with them. Get back to the intersection. We're here for one reason. And the crowd slowly but surely moves back to the intersection. And that's why I'm out there. I don't need there to be this huge altercation.
Because it is easy for the crowd to lose focus.
Oh, yeah.
Or to not even have focus. And so I feel like when I talked to Representative McDougal, I feel like he was trying to remedy the lack of focus during a protest.
You know, I think how you remedy the lack of focus is to put somebody out there to listen to them. I had the opportunity to bring Mayor Holt down to the protest one night.
Right.
He asked me, he was like, do you think it would be advantageous for me to go? And the whole room of people that were there was like, yes.
Yes.
Now, he came out there with like no security or no officers. We were all terrified the whole time because we understand there are sometimes agitators in the groups of protests. You might have 1,000 protesters, maybe only 5 of them are agitators, but nobody cares about the fact that it's only 5 people out of the 1,000. They care about the fact that something bad happened while all of these people were convened, and they blame everybody involved.
That's big. That's big.
But we brought him down there. He listened. You know, that was the last night that we had any sort of incidents happen in Oklahoma City. We had those 2 nights of turmoil, and the courage involved in him not only coming out there, but coming out there and lifting the curfew and saying, hey, let's have a conversation. Stayed out there for, I think, over 2 hours listening to folks talk. Wasn't a publicity stunt, wasn't, you know, I'm gonna show up with security or I'm gonna stay on the other side of the line. He came right into the middle of the crowd, was surrounded by protesters, and listened to these folks explain to him how they were hurting and how they needed to see something happen or to see a change or response from their leadership in order for us to progress. And he did that. He created the task force. I'm a part of that task force. We've been working very diligently on trying to figure out what changes we can actually make. There's pushback, of course, on making these kind of changes, but that's what leadership is. If he really wanted to make sure that things were great and make sure that things didn't get out of hand, he would have came down to the protest himself instead of writing a law because he saw something on TV that he didn't like.
Right. So go ahead and tell me what you saw the interview that I had with McDougal. A lot of respect for him sitting down with me, knowing that I disagreed, and he let me in his office, and we talked about it. We had civil conversation about it. But you watched it. What were your thoughts?
You know, I watched it because I wanted to make sure that whenever I'm taking a position on something or a position against someone, I don't want to be incorrect.
Yeah.
I want to hear from you what you think and what you're saying and what your intent was. And I will agree with what you said in there, that his heart is in the right place. He had good intent. Now, my pushback is that he is ignorant of protest. And he is ignorant, not as an insult to his intelligence. I don't think he's a stupid man at all. I'm not trying to say that. He's ignorant because he hasn't dealt with it. He hasn't had to deal with it. He hasn't felt compelled like I did that day to go down the street and be at the protest. He hasn't been in that area. He hasn't heard those stories. He hasn't seen people show you the bruises from where they were hit with a non-lethal round, or the burns from where, you know, the chemicals might have touched their body, not because they were an agitator, but because somebody else was agitating. And these non-lethal rounds and these tear gas, it doesn't discriminate. It doesn't only go after one person. It hits crowds. It's meant to disperse crowds. And so I tried to listen to him and I tried to give him the benefit of the doubt, but you continuously asked, Like how, and he continuously said, this is to help peaceful protesters. I want people to peacefully protest, but they got to do it the right way. And it was like, well, how does this help? Or what are you doing to help? And he couldn't answer that question.
Yeah.
And I personally don't think that he does support protests, because he's the one who went live on the floor during the teacher walkout and complained about the way the teachers were acting. Now, they didn't destroy any property. They didn't, burn anything down or break vehicles. They blocked traffic, especially the teachers who walked up here from Tulsa. But everything was really peaceful. But he still complained about them. So this person who's like, I'll come protest with you, I have yet to see that be the case for any issue that's really important to my community.
Right. I think I remember pointing out to him that, the protest is all fine when you stay on the curb and it doesn't inconvenience anybody, right? But the nature of protest in and of itself is to be a disruption, to cause people to listen. And so how do we even get to the point, right? What do we need to do to not have people protest? Is to do like you said Mayor Holt did, is to listen first. Don't wait to the disruption and then decide to listen.
Right.
Because we don't know. That's going to bring the minority of agitators out, along with people that have real concerns about justice and a lot of real concerns about an issue. So now take us to 816, and we've decided there's other controversial bills in this legislative session. One was 1775. I've talked about it here on this show, and a lot of people, well, you can't turn on TV right now with somebody talking about critical race theory.
Right.
But we're overturning 1674.
So you can't do a veto referendum on a bill that has an emergency clause in it. So not only was 1775 egregious in the fact that it was trash legislation from the very beginning, 100% erasing history in terms of what injustices have been done to black and brown people in this country.
So you believe it's just as bad as the one you want to overturn?
I think it's worse.
Worse.
I think we are sending a very strong message with 1674 that we need to protect our communities and we can't put up with this. But 1775 is the kind of legislation that takes away the motivation or the passion or the steam or the knowledge or the understanding of history that creates a response to 1674.
Okay. Yeah.
We protest in this country because historically we have always protested, because that's how we get change. But if you erase that history and you start, sugarcoating things, we go back to elementary where the Mayflower came over and the Pilgrims had Thanksgiving dinner with we know that's not real, right? We learned that in our adult lives, but we whitewash all of our history in the past. And if we continue to do that because it makes people feel uncomfortable, then that makes us comfortable with the status quo, which has disparities in it currently. We have to do something about these disparities so that everybody can feel comfortable, instead of erasing the uncomfortability that a certain group of people feels because of those disparities.
So explain this emergency clause thing.
So emergency clauses mean that it gets implemented faster, just like 1674 won't go into effect until November. 1775 is a law now, as of July 1st.
I see. So you couldn't do a state question against.
You couldn't do a veto referendum. Now you can do an initiative petition, and if an initiative petition happens in the next couple of months, I think that that's a great thing that should happen. And I am looking for anybody who wants to start that, so that I can help you. But, like with 1674, if nobody's doing it, I think it's work that needs to be done. And so we'll see what happens. We need to get over this hurdle first.
I got you.
We need to make sure we get these 60,000 signatures, because.
And that's what you need. 59,000.
320.
320. By when?
August 26th.
Okay.
And we're doing pretty good on that. I actually just did a tour of eastern Oklahoma. I went from Grove all the way down to Durant and multiple stops in between to make sure that they had petitions. So we're covering not just Oklahoma City and Tulsa, but we're making sure that we're reaching out across the state so we have real representation in terms of the signatures we're presenting.
So across the state, I have to ask you this question. Very, very, very divisive right now, not only in the country, but in Oklahoma, along party lines. How do you keep this from becoming a partisan issue, that this is a state question that Democrats are going to go for and Republicans won't? How do you make this an everybody, nonpartisan issue?
So I think that he actually covered this in your interview. He thought, I think that it was intended for this to be an attack versus BLM, but those anti-abortion protesters that are outside of Planned Parenthood, since the threshold in this state for riot is 3 people, and it's usually a group of more than 3 people outside of Planned Parenthood, those people's lives are in danger. When you think about the teacher walkout, them walking up from Tulsa, those people's lives are in danger. When you think about these Second Amendment associations, your lives are now in danger. This isn't just one-sided. This is, I felt threatened, and if I see a bunch of guys walking around with guns, I'm probably going to feel threatened. And now this law says that I can run those people over, right? And they'll say, well, it wasn't a riot. Well, how do I know what's a riot and what's not a riot? It was more than 3 people. Right, it was more than 3 people, and they had weapons. So it felt like a riot to me. Now we have to have this conversation in court where we decide whether or not I should have been able to run over these people or not. And I think, again, you can't unhit people with cars. And so
this is bad. This is bad for everybody because
it's it's an infringement on your First Amendment right to peacefully assemble. If you care about the First Amendment and you don't want to sacrifice any part of your First Amendment, then you need to support this effort to overturn this law.
Because every protest has anti-protesters. They have people that are against whatever you're for.
Oh yeah.
Right. So it's always going to be some tension at a protest.
Exactly.
Right. And so what's happening here is either side begins to feel threatened. Then this bill says do whatever you got to do when you feel that way.
Exactly.
Right. And so that's everybody.
Yeah, that's everybody. And I think, look, it's already illegal to damage somebody's vehicle. It's already illegal to break a window or try to pull them out of their car. The law as it exists right now, without this, does everything that it needs to do to keep people safe.
Then what's the point? What is it for?
I think that Don Spencer from OK2A made a statement that this is the tread on you bill. And he said you were going to have the availability to run over people if they're blocking the intersections. And he was like, and if anything is left of them, then they should have to pay for the damage to your car. Like that kind of hate. Then he released a meme that was like the Christmas gift of toy for kids, where it was people being hit by a car. That's an evil person. Maybe he's nice to some people. Maybe he's got a family who loves him. I hope they do. He's an evil person. That right there was a very evil statement, and for him to say it so nonchalantly tells me he's an evil person. That's the kind of person who is either going to run over someone with their car or be the person that somebody's targeting to run over with their car because this law is in place.
Because currently, in all reality, any kind of violence, any kind of infraction whatsoever that happens during a protest, it is investigated. It's sent over to the district attorney or wherever it is in that whatever county, and they decide what level of prosecution under the current laws already.
Right.
So the only thing that this House bill did was add an element of you can run over people now. Everything else was the same.
I fundamentally believe all you can do now is run over people with your cars, and they can charge organizations fines if they feel like they conspired with them. We don't know what that level or threshold for conspiring with actually means. Is this a person who's a part of my organization, or they came to a meeting, or we didn't actually as an organization get involved, which is, again, why I say it's targeted towards BLM, because we bailed a lot of people out of jail. after all of those arrests were made, after we started charging kids with terrorism. It was ridiculous. But, you know, we said these people don't deserve to be in jail. And a lot of them weren't even guilty of the things that they were accused of. And you have evidence that shows the videos that shows like you arrested the wrong person. So we've been fighting that ever since last year. But it's meant to target BLM. It's poorly written, and so it's going to negatively affect everybody. And even if it is only BLM, your kids, your neighbors, the people you go to church with, your coworkers, somebody you care about is going to be at those protests. And when somebody decides they want to run through a crowd, they don't hit one person. They hit multiple people.
Yeah.
And even those people who weren't agitating at all, who weren't bothering the car at all, those people still get hit.
Bottom line, you see it as dangerous. I want to ask you this question because I feel like you got an opinion about this. Is there any conclusions to be made about our state when it comes to racial reconciliation based on these laws being signed into law after the year we've had surrounding social justice and race relations in this country? I just feel like you're going to answer that with your full heart.
I'm trying to keep it family friendly for this show, but it really angers me that we have been crying out for justice and equality and equity, and the response we got was, you need to shut up and stay home. We don't want you to be interfering with our days. We don't want to hear from you. We don't want you involved in the political process. Y'all are bothering us. And to get back at you for bothering us, we're going to make it legal to run you over. We're going to make it illegal for you to film cops. We're going to stop teaching about your history in our schools. We did nothing, zero, zilch, to address any of the concerns that people had when they assembled last year. There is no legislation whatsoever that says we need to make sure that cops are held accountable so that we don't have a Derek Chauvin in Oklahoma City or Oklahoma. Let's not forget, Oklahoma City is second in the nation per capita for killing people. Like, our police department kills more people per capita than all of the other states and territories except for one. That's an issue that we're dealing with.
We're also number 9 in the country for gun violence, the state.
Yeah. And we just made permitless carry, which I ran a veto referendum against that. We didn't have enough time, but
I mean, and I know I don't want to get off the subject, but
right.
when everybody keeps bringing up Oklahoma City being number 2, but they fail to mention that the state is number 9 in the country for gun violence.
Right.
All right. What would you expect for citizenship that is toting guns and shooting guns at the rate that we're toting and shooting guns? What would you expect the law enforcement response to be to protect the citizens? Would you expect a different number?
I would expect, and this may be my bleeding heart liberal self, I would expect the cops to say, hey, we have too many guns on the street in the hands of people who shouldn't have guns, and that makes our job harder.
I think the cops are probably saying that.
To who?
Well,
not the legislature,
let
because
me
we
say-
haven't seen.
Let me say it to you. We got too many guns on the street, and it's making the cops' job harder.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
I think that, look, we just put in permitless carry. All you had to have was a little bit of training to carry a gun. Now you don't have to have anything. And the argument I made then was, everybody knows a person who shouldn't carry a gun. They're too irresponsible, right? But we need the officers to take a stronger stance in saying, hey, if we want to fix things, if we want to better relationships in our communities, then we have to start thinking about race relations in a more equitable way. We have to start thinking about gun ownership in a more equitable way. We have to start thinking about education in a more equitable way. We are moving further away from where we need to be, and that is why our state is in the position that it's in. It's not because we're inherently bad. Oklahoma isn't worse than every other state, but Oklahoma has time and time again moved away from where they should be headed, in the direction they should be headed, and that's why we have these issues.
Give us a letter grade. Oklahoma, as a state, A to F on race relations, all things considered.
G.
Wow.
No, it's just trash. There are so many people, not just in the state, who have a problem with the race relations. There are so many people out of the state who refuse to come to Oklahoma because they know how bad the race relations are. And 1775 and 1674 made international news and how embarrassing we were.
Okay, action steps. What do we do? What do you want us to do? What's the marching orders for the community if we agree with you that this is a dangerous bill and we want to overturn it the first chance we get with 816? Tell us how we do it.
Definitely. First and foremost, find a place to fill out the petition. Make sure that your signature is on that page. And if you have the time to donate to the effort, get some of those petitions and take them around your community. Take them to church with you. Take them to work with you if that's allowed at your job. Don't get fired. Take them, to your networks and get those people to sign them. Even if you don't agree and you think that the law should stay, you should sign this petition because you believe in democracy and you think that the people should vote.
Right.
So I think, hey, we have the right here in this state to have our voices heard, to have direct impact on legislation that goes into effect. So we should be doing that. So whether that's signing or whether that's you circulating, that's something that we need. The second thing is educate people on this. We have been getting signatures for a long time, and so many people are saying that law would never pass here. And I'm like, it already passed. Or I can't believe they would sign that. You got to be kidding me. No, it's signed. Like, people don't believe that this has happened in this state. There are people who haven't heard the message clear enough that the bill passed and that there's an effort to veto it. So we need people to be spreading that message. And then the third thing that you can do is be more involved with the legislative process. You got to vote. You got to make sure that your friends and family are registered to vote. You got to pay attention to what laws they're passing and call your elected official and say, hey, you need to do something better about this. And not just at the legislative level, but at the municipal level, at your county level. The reason that so many of these laws are pushed through is because nobody is there paying attention at the time. We have to do better at that. We have no choice.
Right.
If you don't want to be the person who gets hit by a car at a protest, then you need to make sure you were the person who voted. You were the person who called your member. You were the person who made sure your voice was heard. You were the person who was paying attention. So that last part, I think, is the most important. Be knowledgeable, be involved.
Where will these petitions be? Churches?
Yeah, churches. We have some at different headquarters. We have some at different businesses. NoOn816.com is our website. Go on the website, find out if there's a location near you. We're updating that continuously. Like I said, we just put a bunch across eastern Oklahoma. We just got some delivered out towards the Panhandle. So we're adding more and more places to that list every single day. NoOn816.com is the website. Go there to find out where you can sign.
And you're everywhere. I've even listened to you on Clubhouse. I've even listened to you on Clubhouse. So you're everywhere, and I just was listening in. I said, look at here, he's on Clubhouse. So tell them how we contact you. Twitter. What's the best way to get in touch with you?
Joshua Harris Till. I'm the only one. So you do J Harris Till on Instagram or Twitter, Joshua Harris Till on Facebook, Joshua Harris Till at Gmail. I am the only one. You're going to reach me if you use any of those methods.
I appreciate your time for being here. I appreciate your passion and your hard work. And one last thing. Are you planning to run for something?
That's a great question.
The best question all night. I get it right here. You're going to make an announcement right here on Conversation with Cubit.
I will make the announcement that if there is a need for me to run for office, I will definitely run for it. I live in a good district. Cindy Munson's my rep. Julia Kurt's my senator. Things are nice where I'm at.
I know both of them. They are wonderful.
Phenomenal folks.
Yeah.
And so, again, I've ran for Congress before, and I ran for Congress at 24 years old. It's something you should never do. And so I'm very cognizant of how hard it is to run a campaign.
Come on now.
I know you understand. So, there's a lot of options out there. Should I be called upon to run for something, then I would do so willingly for my community. But right now, my focus, the campaign that I'm working on, is to get these signatures.
I can tell you, I appreciate you, your love and your heart for people. I appreciate you always remembering who I am and picking up the phone and text message when I call you when I have questions and stuff like that. So I appreciate you doing that and appreciate you in doing what you can for our community, whatever that is. And I need to get one of those t-shirts. That's it for Conversations with Cubit. Thank you so much, and be on the lookout for next week's conversation. It's all about community.